Coming up on Growing Indoors with the Eco Garden House, we're going to harvest more tomatoes as well as address a semi-plant failure and put something in its place to where we can produce more in a short amount of time. Sponsored by Eco Garden House. At last, an indoor greenhouse equipped with complete easy lighting and watering systems. You can grow perfect organic produce and plants at your home all year round. Grow 24/7, 365. You now have no excuses. Welcome to Growing Indoors with the Eco Garden House. I'm Joey Baird. We're going to start with harvesting a lot more of tomatoes that we have here. We've got cherry tomatoes that are ready. We've got Roma tomatoes that are ready, as well as we've got one large, what I believe is a black crim tomato that is ready. Now, harvesting tomatoes, whether you're doing them in the Eco Garden House or you're doing them outside, it's the same procedure. You do want to have snips here for the larger ones. The smaller ones are not too terribly bad. For example, right here, as we talked about in the last episode, you can just pop them off, just like that. Works real good. Not a big deal. Those are yellow plum tomatoes. Now, when it comes to harvesting larger tomatoes like this black crim, you can try to pop it off, but the easiest thing is just come in here with the snips, just cut it off, and you're good. Now you see that one we let set too long because it started to crack down the side here, and that is a sign of a couple of things. That can be over-ripening, and too much water is another contributing factor. So we do have the irrigation system hooked up, so we want to monitor that as these other tomatoes get ripe. But that is a black crim, very ripe. And a lot of the times with the tomatoes, the shoulders, which is what is the top portion is called, doesn't necessarily get ripe. You can let this set for a few more days. Color of tomatoes begin ripening at the base, and then they ripen around to the top. So that's the reason that is. And then we have Romas in here. We have a couple of Romas. Well, we have a handful of Romas. This one is the ripest, and that one just pulls right off. Now, if you notice on the bottom, there's some black here. That's going to go up inside of the tomato a little bit. You can cut that out. That is a sign of calcium deficiency. The plant's not picking up the necessary calcium that is required for the plant to develop the fruit correctly. So in order to correct that, you can add amendments, you can add nutrients. We add some Epsom salt, and that helps the plant pick up what calcium that is available in the soil. And there's a science that happens. It's not the Epsom salt, it's magnesium sulfate, it's not calcium, but there's a science that allows the tomato plant to pick up the necessary calcium that is available in the soil. So I'm going to go in here, I'm going to harvest all of these tomatoes out, and then we're going to talk about our somewhat crop failure and what we're going to plant in its place that should ripen or reach maturity relatively quickly. So we harvested, we've got a number of, we got Romas, black crim, and some cherry or yellow plum tomatoes. And we've got more tomatoes that are green on the vine, on the cherry here, and we've got one there that's a black crim. Now the black crim that we had, that was a volunteer that we dug up and brought in, and we do still have some larger, even larger black crims over on that side. So the tomatoes will continue to produce. We're going to look at the potential crop failure or sort of crop failure we had. Now, the mirror in the back here has absolutely nothing to do with the production of the Eco Garden House. That is just so you can see better what I'm doing in the raised bed that we have placed in here. Now, we have a number of, so we've planted purple green beans, essentially what they are, royalty beans. And we do have some that are ready to harvest, but a majority of the plants didn't do as well as I had hoped they would have done. So what we're going to do is we're going to harvest those, and we're just going to harvest all the beans that we have available or ready to go. And then what we're going to do is we're going to extract everything in this particular area, which is the 2 square feet next to our pepper plants, or our banana pepper plants here, which are producing very nice. And we've got bell plants, or these are Cherokee chocolate bell peppers back there that are doing relatively well. Now, again, we talked about in an earlier episode about how we need to harvest this on a regular basis so the beans continue, or any of the crops continue to produce, because once the plant feels like it has produced enough produce for its reproduction for carrying on the traits next year as nature would intended,
it's going to shut down. So here's an example here of what we failed to pick is a golden wax bean that has dried on the vine. So you open it up and you have one bean there that we can save, and we'll save that and plant it again. But that's what happens is the plant will produce and then dry out, and that's the seed, and that's the way it goes. So what we're going to do is I'm going to harvest all of the beans here that are ready, and then we'll start extracting them out, or removing them, and we'll talk a little bit about how they fix nitrogen as well as what we're going to plant in this spot. So we've removed all the beans, and I've still got a few more here that are on the small side. We're going to go ahead and pull them. Now the beans in the bed did not do as well as the beans that are in the hanging baskets here. You can see that, where did I see flowers at? Oh, you can see these beans here are still developing, as well as there's more flowers that, like right there, that's more flowers, here's more flowers. So we'll keep those watered. But with any situation, whether it is the Eco Garden House, whether it is a container, whether it is your raised bed or your garden, you want to look at and see if something's producing. If it's not producing very well, like those beans are not producing, we're going to remove them and put something in its place to where we can continually get a harvest off of it, not sit there and wait 3 or 4 weeks for 2 or 3 beans. So we want to maximize our space. So we want to go ahead and I'm going to pull these out and take a look at them. Now and they're a little bit here. Beans are a legume, and legumes produce their own nitrogen. They have a symbiotic relationship with the atmosphere that pulls nitrogen, and they fix their own nitrogen. Now that means that if you do have nitrogen fertilizer and you put on the plants, they're going to use that first. And they'll have little nodulars on the roots in which the nitrogen will fix in the roots and the plant will pull it out. And these have some, but not many, of those little nodulars on the roots there. So I'm going to, instead of pulling them out, I'm going to trim them off, level with the soil, just to leave those roots in there, so if there is any nitrogen, that it will stay in the soil and not be just thrown in the compost. So I'll get this cleaned out, and then we'll take our next step. So I cleaned out the bed there. It's about 2 square feet or so. Now what we're going to plant in that place of where the beans were is Black Beauty zucchini. It'll look like this. This is a smaller version of what we intend to grow. Now this would take about 57 to 63 days to reach maturity. Yes, zucchini plants can get very large, but we can control it, and we'll address that as those situations present themselves. But you know, zucchini during the middle portions of, for us, winter would be a very enjoyable treat to have, and you will have to hand pollinate it, which is very easy to do. So with that being said, we're going to plant 2 different piles, or 2 different areas here of the zucchini. So we got the irrigation system running here, so I know where the water is going to come out, and we'll have a little challenge here with the peppers here, but that's I have some ideas of how to corral the zucchini so it can grow and produce without interrupting the growth of the other plants. And we will plant about 3 seeds per area here, and that's my area. One area is right there, and the other one's going to be kind of back in this corner here. But you can see the moisture that's in the soil where the drip irrigation system has been doing its job. So this is what zucchini seeds look like. It's part of the squash family, and many of the squash plants or seeds all look like this. So if you're going to buy a lot of seeds, you don't want to mix them up because you want to know what you got. And we'll take, let's see, 3, we'll go 6 seeds here. And we want to plant them that way, because the seed is going to open up at the top there, and that's where you're going to see that the seedling emerge from. So we want to put, and we'll put them about a ½ inch deep. Whenever you're planting anything with seeds, you want to go at least the depth of the seed below, so 2.5. So if the seed is a ½ inch high, you want to put it 1 inch deep so it's under the soil appropriately. So we'll just put them there. And we're putting 3 and going to trim or wean out 2 of them and keep the strongest one. And I'm going to do the same here, around there, and we'll cover it up. And then those will germinate with the warmth of the Eco Garden House. Those will germinate in about 5 to 7 days. We'll be able to begin to see those come up. And then we'll trim back the 2 weaker ones of each planting and then address fertilizing them and getting them to grow successfully so we can have zucchini in about 60 days or about 2 months with that.
For more information, please visit thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com.